So, hello, everybody. I kind of wandered into a topic just in terms of leading the meditation. Um, Something I talk about occasionally, and those of you who have followed me for a while, and that's a lot of you, have probably heard this before, but I don't remember talking about it too recently. And that's the back of the heart. And it seems really appropriate to talk about it in this class because it is a place of rest. It's something that I really I learned on my own. I have to say, it wasn't anything I read about or was taught as a practice. But there was a period of time, which must be at least 15 years ago now, maybe close to 20, when in my own practice as I meditated, I felt like I was somehow led to this spot in the body. Um, Really, a spot in the energy body, but it's of course located in what we perceive as a physical body. And what I discovered is that it was a deep place of rest. And so I often share with people how to access it. First of all, just to know it exists is helpful. But the way that I've kind of taught people to access it is, first of all, to notice where your energy is in the body. And in this culture, it tends to be in the head. You tend to feel like you're up here in the head, looking out from behind the eyes. And where you kind of place yourself that way draws the energy. And we often identify with our thoughts. We identify with our mental capacities. Um, and there's a kind of a level of trust we give to our thoughts and our mental capacities that adds to that energy. We trust it to get us through the day. We trust it to get us, to make us safe, not foul anything up. We give it that kind of authority. And we may not know until someone actually points it out that there's this other energy center below it called the heart, and another one below that called the belly. And there are more than these, but those I think are really the primary ones that I've worked with and that I think have the most kind of oomph to them. And so when you're meditating, or otherwise, really, you can just come to notice this kind of in your headness. Some people feel aversion to it, especially if you've been meditating for a while. A lot of people don't like their head. That doesn't help anything, doesn't help anybody, but it happens. People have an aversion to their head and all that it has to say, and every way that it tries to help you that isn't really helping you. And people very easily get kind of upset with their head. But my method is somewhat bypasses that, where you just energetically connect with the head. There's a kind of an energetic field that's formed by your hands when you put them together. And actually, they're not completely together. They're about a half an inch apart. And you feel in the palms, you can feel like a current that flows through there. And if you rotate your palms relative to each other, it seems like it makes it even more pronounced. It's like you're rolling a ball of something in there. And you can feel the movement of something around your palms. So it's a very concrete experience of this energy center. And I start with it because I think people are very sensitive to it. It's a very powerful one. And so once you activate that, you can actually bring your hands and your palms up to your head, about at your ears, and see if you can feel that current running through your head in some way. You may not feel it so much running through your head, but I still feel it in my palms. I still feel the energy moving through my palms. And then it's a little subtler in the head. You can actually go through there. And so then, this is the kind of wild part. You can lock and click and drag, so to speak, just like you're on your computer. Click and drag all of that energy that's in your head around your thinking. And with your palms, slowly kind of drag that down. And you can feel, as you come down, you can feel something coming down with it. Then bring them down and point them toward your heart. Actually pointing them not towards the surface of your chest, but in the center of your chest cavity. And holding it there, feeling a connection with your heart. Just invite all of that energy up in your head to drain down. And it feels like maple syrup. It feels like about that viscosity, about that speed. Something starts to drain out of your head. If you're attracted to doing this, I encourage you to do this every day. Maybe even start this before your meditation. Bringing down the energy out of your head. Bringing it into your heart. And you can also drop it down further to the belly and point those points in the middle of your palm to your belly, just a little bit below the navel, and also not right at the surface, but deep in the middle. Draw energy down into the pelvis that way. Now, if you don't feel anything, don't worry. Just pretend, just imagine. It's kind of odd, but just imagining this happening does something just as much as the actual feeling of it. So we're going to stay with the heart because that's really what I want mostly to talk about here. So bring back up. And so in the anatomy of the heart as an energy, we're not talking about the physical heart here so much as the energetic center of the heart. There's a forward and a backward to the heart. There's an actual kind of opening that opens forward. So if you can imagine somebody who you feel a lot of affection toward, animals work very well with this. Humans are complicated. You know, you may not feel that towards your spouse all the time, but you might feel it quite easily towards your cat or dog or parakeet or whatever. This sort of warmth that just kind of radiates forward. Feel that. And so the front of the heart is very much a place of affection. It's a place of our relatedness to other people. And so it's often activated when we are engaged in relationship with people that we have a connection with. But there's also a back to the heart, and this is often more obscure to people. If you want, you can put your hands down. If you want, just keep it there. It might make it easier to understand. So if you feel toward the back of the heart, you'll also notice there's a kind of an energetic opening that goes between the shoulder blades, or maybe just a little under the place in the shoulder blades that's closest together. There's a kind of an opening backwards. So you can kind of feel a radiance, feel a flow toward what's behind you. And yet the mysterious thing about this is there's nothing behind you, right? I don't mean the chair. There's probably a chair. There could be a cushion you're pushing against, but you actually don't see anything back there. There's nobody back there. If anything, there's just a kind of spaciousness, a nothing. But it's a curious nothing. If you actually feel into it, if you actually let your attention go there, into that emptiness behind you, notice how it feels. The word empty in English can sound foreboding, something like something lonely and bleak. But this emptiness is not that. Feel into it. There's actual comfort there. I think of it as your connection with the unseen, which is behind you. And it's a bit of a paradox because how can you trust something you can't see and you can't feel? Well, try right now. Try just kind of relaxing and opening into the invisible openness behind you and see what that feels like. And if something gets scared, finds that forbidding, just stay with that a little bit. It's okay to feel that. Then just inquire, is there anything actually scary there? So now the place of rest that I find is once you've kind of opened the channel backward and you've touched that place of open, empty, nothing, the unseen, and kind of come back in the body to the back of the heart and hang out there with that sense of openness behind you. Also, that sense of openness perhaps in front of you, too, that sort of a channel of affection that goes at the front of the heart. You can also feel the spine and the way the spine is supporting you all the way up from the ground, which in this case is mediated by the chair and your sitting bones. The ground comes up through the chair, actually through the beams of the house and the floor, everything. It transfers that ground energy to your body, so your body feels secure. Release into it. And so the back of the heart is grounded down through the spine. It also rises up through the spine, up through the crown. So it's connected in a way that's not quite so personal as the front of the heart. I think of it more as the universal heart. The way we're embedded in the cosmos and never separated from it. Never. In the same way, in obvious ways, we're never separated from our environment. We're never separated from the atmosphere that we breathe. If we are, we die. We're never separated from gravity that allows us to walk. I mean, sure, we can fly around in space and float. It's not really what the human body was meant for. But even more fundamentally than these things of the physical body, there is an orientation energetically that we are always connected with. We are always plugged into it. The problem is that we don't feel it. We get alienated from it. We get drawn up into our head, which is famous for not feeling connected and famous for feeling threatened. So I practice and encourage you to practice this kind of resting in the heart. I don't know what my dog is doing when she's just sitting there in a state of presence, but my sense is she's resting in her heart, her dog heart. She's at rest. And it comes from not feeling separate. We human animals have strayed somehow. We have this illusion of separateness that we walk around with in the way we put things together. And it's that more than anything that makes us anxious. That gets refracted into all the anxiety producing things of our day and the people around us and the responsibilities we hold. There's some fundamental kind of separation that we live in that is fed by all that and feeds it. So to plug back in, or to recognize. It's actually not an action of plugging back in. It's actually recognizing the way we are already embedded in this cosmos energetically, and that our separation is an illusion. That's what the back of the heart meditation really means to me. It's a place where I feel concretely and directly this connectedness. And because we're animals, because we're embodied, because our whole psyche is like mapped out physically, that's why, our consciousness does these things. It's why we can do the funky head to the heart thing, because there's some way that consciousness as embodied is mapped out in a certain way. And the heart has a certain valence. The belly has a certain valence. I don't know how all this works. I just know that it's true from experience, on an experiential level. There's a way that we have this sort of map of connectedness that we walk around in, embedded in. So let's just take a moment. You can close your eyes if you will. Just kind of feel that back of the heart. Feel the opening out into nothingness. Feel the way the spine and the whole core of the body just support the heart. Round it down. And just see if there's any glimmer of what I'm talking about. Again, I don't want you to worry if you don't have a concrete experience of it. Worrying won't help. Just that sense of being already plugged in, already connected, already oriented to this cosmos that you are in. And there's a quality, I'm going to name it, but the name is troublesome because it's not a name. But there's just a quality when one settles in this connected way that feels like all is well. All is well. If you pop up into your head, the head will tell you everything that's not well, everything that's wrong, blah, 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 blah. That all has its own cogency. But in this place of connectedness, there's a different sense of things. All is well. Again, it doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. Doesn't mean there are no problems to solve. Doesn't mean the world is in crisis. All that is simply a different level of reality. This is a level of non-separation. And it's my sense that when you operate from this place, this back of the heart, from the universal love, you can be much more effective with those problems and difficulties that are in this world. You can move in a different way in the world. A way that feels more like rest and less like busyness, less like carrying the world on your shoulders.